July 24, 1943, Pacific Ocean, 300 miles southeast of Truk Atoll. Lieutenant Commander Dan Daspit stares through USS Tinosa's periscope at the largest prize of his naval career. The 19th 250-ton Japanese tanker Tonin Maru No. 3 sits motionless after taking 2 torpedo hits. Her engine room is crippled, a sitting duck waiting to be finished off. "Fire 1, Daspit commands. The Mark 14 torpedo streaks through crystal blue water, its wake drawing a deadly white line toward the enemy hull. Impact. The thump of steel striking steel echoes through Tinosa's hull. Then nothing, no explosion, no towering column of water. Just silence. Fire 2. Another perfect hit, another dud. What Daspit doesn't know is that he's about to waste 13 more torpedoes on this helpless target. His weapons carry a fatal flaw that has already cost American lives. What he doesn't know is that 8,000 meters away, an unnamed machinist in a Pearl Harbor torpedo shop is about to commit what the Navy considers an illegal act, one that will save thousands of American lives. By day's end, the statistics are damning. 15 torpedoes fired, 13 hits, 2 explosions. The most advanced torpedo in the world has just achieved an 87% failure rate against a stationary target. The Mark 14 entered combat in December 1941 with an 80% failure rate. Of the first 97 torpedoes fired by American submarines, only 3 enemy ships were sunk. In 2 years of war, American submarines fired over 800 torpedoes. 40 failed to explode. Japanese merchant ships continued sailing unmolested while U.S. submariners risked their lives for nothing. The Imperial Japanese Navy dismissed American attacks as mere nuisance raids. Of the 53 U.S. submarines lost in World War II, 20 were sunk before October 1943, many after failed attacks that should have been victories. American boys were dying because their primary weapons didn't work. Yet salvation lay in the hands of a machinist whose name history forgot. The Mark 14 torpedo represented the pinnacle of 1920s naval technology, and therein lay the problem. Designed by the Navy's Bureau of Ordnance starting in 1926, this 21-foot, 3,000-pound marvel cost $10,000 each, 5 times the price of a new automobile at the time. Its revolutionary feature was the Mark 6 exploder, equipped with magnetic influence and contact detonation systems. The magnetic component should have detonated beneath enemy hulls, breaking their keels. It was so secret that no maintenance manual was ever distributed. Here's the fatal mistake. The Bureau of Ordnance conducted exactly 1 test in May 1926. 2 torpedoes were fired at a derelict submarine. 1 failed completely, the second exploded. With a 50% success rate, the Bureau declared the weapon ready for service. No further testing was done. Problems manifested immediately. December 14, 1941, 1 week after Pearl Harbor, USS Seawolf fired 8 torpedoes at a Japanese freighter. 7 missed. The 8th hit squarely and failed to explode. Similar reports flooded in from across the Pacific. Something was terribly wrong. Torpedoes ran too deep, passing beneath targets. Others detonated prematurely. The most frustrating were the duds, perfect strikes that produced no explosion. The Navy's response was predictable. Blame the submarine commanders. Bureau officials insisted training, not torpedoes, was the problem. Admiral Robert English, Commander Submarines Pacific, sided with the Bureau, accusing skippers of lack of initiative. The Bureau maintained nothing was wrong with their weapons. This created a deadly feedback loop. Crews knew torpedoes were defective, yet were forbidden to modify them. Meanwhile, Japanese convoys crossed the ocean with impunity. USS Wahoo fired 4 torpedoes at a Japanese destroyer from point-blank range. All 4 hit, none exploded. Commander Dudley Morton told his crew, "We might as well throw rocks at them." Frustration and fatalism spread through the force. Even when Admiral Charles Lockwood conducted unofficial tests in June 1942, proving the torpedoes ran 10 to 15 feet deeper than set, the Bureau dismissed his findings. By mid-1942, over 800 torpedoes had been used. Roughly 80% had failed. Yet expert consensus among Navy brass remained unchanged. The stakes were enormous. Every failed attack let Japanese reinforcements reach critical battlefields. Every escaping ship carried resources that would kill more Americans. The torpedo crisis was not merely technical. It was a strategic disaster born of institutional arrogance and refusal to admit error. Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, September 1943. The submarine tender's machine shop hummed with desperate activity as damaged torpedoes returned from failed patrols. Among lathes and drill presses worked a man whose name appears on no official records, a civilian machinist hired after Pearl Harbor. No Naval Academy diploma hung on his wall. No engineering degree validated his expertise. He had decades of practical shop knowledge. Thousandths of an inch mattered, and metal behaved in ways theory sometimes missed. He watched as more torpedoes returned with warheads intact, despite multiple hits. Torpedo Shop Chief William Thompson briefed the crew on Admiral Lockwood's directive: somehow make these weapons reliable. Officially, any modifications beyond routine maintenance were forbidden. The Bureau had painted screws to show tampering. Violators faced court-martial. But the machinist saw a pattern. He examined dozens of returned contact exploders and noticed the same failure. Steel firing pins deformed under impact, jamming in their guides and failing to trigger detonation. The pin from Tinosa's failed attack showed clear mushrooming and bending. "Steel's too heavy," he muttered. "Needs to be lighter." He knew aluminum alloy would solve the problem. Lighter than steel, yet strong and resistant to deformation. The Navy had aluminum, but using it meant modifying the exploder, an illegal act under current regulations. Still, piles of failed torpedoes and patrol reports made the choice obvious. On September 15, 1943, at 2300 hours, the machinist stayed after the evening shift. He unlocked a storage locker containing salvage parts from a Mitsubishi A6M0, pulled from Pearl Harbor's depths. The Japanese fighter's high-grade aluminum alloy was perfect for his plan. Working by flashlight at a quiet lathe, he measured the original steel firing pin, then began machining prototypes from the salvaged aluminum. The new pin was 30% lighter, yet retained necessary strength. He adjusted springs and guides, improving tolerances by thousandths of an inch. By dawn, he had a prototype contact exploder. He approached Chief Thompson in the morning. Thompson inspected the part, admiration and concern on his face. The machinist had just violated a dozen regulations. "Those regulations are killing our boys," the machinist said. Thompson made a risky decision. Using his authority, Thompson authorized a secret test. They used a return torpedo that had struck a cruiser without exploding, removed the steel pin, and installed the aluminum one. The crude test rig, a hydraulic press and steel plate simulating a 46-knot impact, worked perfectly. The modified exploder fired. The modified exploder fired repeatedly under test conditions. Word spread. Chief Thompson showed Commander Art Taylor the results and the aluminum pin. Taylor's reaction summed it up. "That is illegal as hell, do it again." More tests under controlled conditions produced consistent success, and the Whisper network grew across the base. October 3, 1943. A Pearl Harbor conference room filled with Bureau of Ordnance men, including Captain Ralph Christie. Admiral Charles Lockwood entered carrying a manila folder of test data and photos, deformed firing pins, aluminum pin results. The room exploded into argument immediately. Christie insisted there was no contact exploder problem. The fault lay with crews and maintenance. Lockwood presented empirical evidence and photographs. He even referenced physicists' input. Albert Einstein had advised a design change years earlier, but the Bureau ignored it. The debate grew heated and personal. Bureau men cited procurement rules, testing protocols, and chain-of-command violations. Lockwood asked a single damning question. "Are you ordering me to reinstall known defective exploders in torpedoes that will be used against our men?" The implication was clear. Doing nothing equaled criminal negligence. Admiral Chester Nimitz entered and ended the argument. He had reviewed Lockwood's file and test results. "My concern isn't procurement procedure," he said. "It's winning this war." He ordered immediate retrofit of submarine torpedoes with modified exploders and authorized broader production using any available aluminum sources. Captain Christie sat stunned as his bureau's reputation unraveled. 2 decades of design and testing were effectively overturned by a machinist working with scrap metal. The illegal fix had become policy. Within weeks, every submarine in the Pacific Fleet would carry torpedoes with aluminum exploders. November 8, 1943, USS Sculpin, 200 miles northeast of the Gilbert Islands. Commander Fred Conaway peered through his periscope at a sight every sub-skipper dreamt of: a Japanese aircraft carrier steaming with destroyer escorts. This time, his torpedoes were weapons he could trust. Each Mark 14 loaded aboard Sculpin carried a contact exploder, fitted with the Machinist's aluminum firing pin. Testing during October showed remarkable reliability, roughly 94% consistent firing under impact conditions versus the steel pin's abysmal 20% success in many scenarios. Range 120 yards, closing speed calculated precisely. Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3. The torpedoes streaked toward the carrier. The first struck the port side amidships and detonated 680 pounds of torpex. A massive fireball and torn metal marked the hit. The second punched through the flight deck and exploded inside. The third slammed into a destroyer escort turning to investigate. The aluminum pin functioned perfectly, detonating warhead and breaking the ship's back. Yamagumo sank in minutes. The tactical result was devastating, but the psychological shift aboard Sculpin was equally profound. For 2 years, skippers had attacked with grim resolve and doubt. Now they could plan and execute without anticipating failure. All torpedoes functioned as designed, Conaway reported. The newfound confidence multiplied offensive effectiveness across the submarine force almost immediately. Successes mounted. USS Wahoo sank 4 merchant ships on a single patrol. USS Silversides destroyed 3 cargo vessels. USS Tang began a patrol that would make her the war's most successful submarine. Contact exploder reliability transformed mission outcomes and crew morale. The kill ratio statistics told the transformation. Before aluminum modifications, Deck 1941, Sept 1943, torpedoes fired 14,748. Ships sunk 180, a 1.2% success rate. After widespread implementation, AUK 1943, AUG 1945, torpedoes fired 8,214, ships sunk 1,198, roughly a 14.6% success rate. Japan noticed, intercepted Imperial Navy communications showed alarm. Rear Admiral Runosaku Kusaka reported submarine attacks had become devastatingly effective. Merchant losses skyrocketed. Shipping tonnage losses rose from monthly averages of 50,000 tons to over 300,000 tons by early 1944. Critical raw materials and food shipments stalled. Island garrisons starved, factories lacked resources. Japanese officers remarked that American torpedoes now exploded on impact, and that submarine attacks had shifted from nuisance raids to strategic threats the Navy could not easily counter. By December 1943, American submarines were sinking Japanese ships faster than their shipyards could replace them. The Pacific War had turned decisively in America's favor, thanks to aluminum firing pins machined from enemy aircraft by a man whose name never appeared on any record. August 15, 1945. Emperor Hirohito's surrender echoed across Tokyo Bay. Aboard battleship Missouri, General MacArthur accepted Japan's surrender as U.S. submarines patrolled nearby. Their torpedo rooms now filled with weapons that worked flawlessly, a quiet monument to one machinist's courage. The final statistics told the story. Total Japanese merchant vessels sunk 1,078, tonnage destroyed over 5 million tons. More than half were sunk by submarines. Of the 214 American submarines that fought in the Pacific, those with aluminum firing pins achieved success rates 15 times higher. A simple material change transformed the Pacific War's outcome. The most powerful testimony came from the sailors themselves. Torpedo man First Class Robert Ward of USS Wahoo wrote to his family, "Somebody back home fixed our fish. They work now every time. Because of you, we came home." Lieutenant Commander Dan Daspit returned to Pearl Harbor in January 1944. His first stop was the torpedo shop where the modifications were born. "I need to thank the man who fixed our exploders," he told Chief Thompson. Thompson shook his head. "He's not here." Transferred never left his name. The machinist's anonymity became part of his legend. While Admiral Lockwood earned the Distinguished Service Medal and Commander Mommsen received the Legion of Merit for ending the torpedo crisis, the man who actually solved it vanished into history, unrecorded, unrewarded, and unnamed. Post-war investigations revealed the aluminum pin design influenced torpedo technology for decades. The Mark 48, America's primary submarine weapon from 1972 onward, incorporated firing pin mechanics descended directly from the wartime modification first made in that Pearl Harbor machine shop. Even today, technicians at the Naval Submarine Base in New London study surviving examples of those modified exploders. Preserved in museum displays, the aluminum pins stand as proof that practical craftsmanship can achieve what bureaucracy and theory alone sometimes cannot. The moral lesson transcends history. When institutional arrogance meets necessity, craftsmen often succeed where experts fail. The Machinist story proves solutions can come not from advanced degrees or hierarchy, but from skilled hands, persistence, and the courage to defy broken systems. As one submarine veteran reflected years later, admirals plan battles, but machinists win wars. The man who fixed America's torpedoes asked for no recognition, left no memoir, and claimed no credit. His legacy endures in every successful strike, and in every submariner who made it home alive.